Hi, Zen Bliss here again. I just was listening to one of my favorite audios by Abraham Hicks. I just love them so much. They always just put everything into perspective in such a way that it's just so freeing because they just speak absolute truth. It's undeniable. You can avoid it all you want, but it's the truth. And what's interesting is what they were talking about. It was Abraham talking to this woman who was finding herself in a space of frustration because she had been doing what I like to call tree people do a lot of. And by tree people, I'm referring to the tree element or the wood element in the Chinese 5 elements. Which is extending themselves, giving of herself, giving, to the point of frustration where the imbalance happens, and then feeling frustrated about them wanting to continue to take, and her no longer being in a space feeling like she could continue to give. And so I call those tree people because I think of it like a tree cutting off your branches and giving your branches to people and eventually having this barren stump and having nothing left. And so what's interesting about that was what Abraham was saying about it, which is, and I'm still digesting this concept. I've heard it many, many times and I recognize it, and I find myself often not applying it. So I'm saying this for my own benefit as well as for my audience, which is, our inner being, the source within us, our divinity, our true self, doesn't have judgment. And this is an interesting concept because inner being or source within, the divine source that lives within us, the source, the God, the goddess, the divinity, whatever you want to call it, that lives within each and every one of us, is always looking ahead and is always looking in the direction of what it is that we're wanting to create. It is our north compass. It is our true north. It is always looking in the future, at the next step and the next step and the next step for whatever it is that we want to create. And I understand this conceptually for sure, but what's interesting about it is what happens within our system based on our own personal or egoic assessment of what's happening. So what happens is, there's something we want. In this case, the lady was deciding that she didn't want to give the money or whatever she was giving to the person anymore. I believe it was money. And she felt bad about it. And then she felt like that person owed her money. And then she found herself having a really hard time asking for receiving the money that she felt was owed to her. She didn't feel like she could even ask the person back for what they owed her. And what's interesting about that is I find that true with clients, with people that have a hard time asking for money, with people that have a hard time receiving money for their services. It all comes down to this one thing, which just was like a aha moment for me. And it comes down to the relationship that we have with our inner being. So inner being knows that we deserve to be fully compensated, to be fully supported, to be fully balanced in our energy exchanges. Money is just an energy exchange, and is always looking to express that. But whatever stories or belief systems we have about what it means to either receive money or to ask for money is what gets in the way of that. And here's where it really blew my mind. So in this example, the lady that was afraid to ask the person for the money that was owed to her, her exact words were, I don't feel like I can. I don't feel like it doesn't feel good. I don't think I can ask her for this money back. And immediately Abraham goes in to explain how inner being is not looking at that person the same way that the woman was looking at that person. Inner being is looking at that person who owes them money, quote unquote, as completely capable, in their power, has access to all the resources and the infinite abundance that source is at all times, and can 100% give them back what is owed to them. Meanwhile, the woman is looking at that person as incapable. It's looking at that person as not able to give them the money that they deserve. They are actually seeing that person as either A, they don't have the resources or the ability to give them back the money, or I've noticed sometimes in my cases, I've looked at people, because I've experienced this as well, and I know they have the sources, I know they have the resources, so I have a frustration and a judgment in the space where I'm annoyed or frustrated at them because I know that they're using those resources in a different direction. And so that was a big, huge aha for me, because the breakthrough was whatever resistance or whatever judgment we have about that other person, about whether they are capable or not capable, whether they have the resources or don't have the resources, we are prejudging that person based on our own story, not the truth of who they are. Because the truth is, as inner being sees them, as source sees them, they are 100% capable, and they have the ability, whether they have the physical resources or not, they have the ability to obtain them. And it's the discord that happens between how we are seeing them versus how our inner source is seeing them that creates those feelings of discomfort. And then on top of that, it's the story that we're telling ourselves about what it means. So often, I've seen this in a lot of people, including myself in the past, which is it's hard to ask somebody for what is owed to you because either you're seeing them as incapable, or you have judgment in the space. So, and the story that we have associated with is that I can't ask them for because I might make them uncomfortable, or I can't ask them for what is owed to me because it might hurt their feelings, or I can't ask them for this, $20 that I loan them because they need to use it for something else, or because they really don't, it's the last money that they have, and if I ask them for that, then I'm going to end up hurting them and their families. Like story, whatever the story is. Or it could be, we know they have the $20 and we just saw them go and spend it on something else. And then now we're frustrated and now we're bitter. Either way, we have a story, we have a judgment that's in the space that's looking at that other person as something other than the truth of who they are. And what's crazy is this, this is what humans, myself included, do all the time. It comes down to the judgment. It comes down to how we're seeing the other person and or how we're seeing ourselves in the situation, in contrast to how our true self, our inner being, our source is actually seeing the situation. When we get into alignment with how our true self sees the thing, sees the situation, sees the other person, sees the big picture, the entire situation changes. Then we can offer the truth into the situation, which is, I totally see you're capable. I totally know you have this. I totally know you can get this. I totally know you have access to whatever it is. I totally believe you can manifest that $20 or whatever it is. And they walk outside and there's a $20 bill on the floor outside. I've literally had that experience. So it's interesting that we push away the very thing that we think we want based on our judgment of the situation and or the person. So I just wanted to share that because it was a big aha moment for me. And I was like, wow. So in terms of coaching and clients, if you are predetermining that that person can't afford your services, can't afford your products, can't afford to work with you, and then expand that by having an entire story about all the reasons why they can't, then you're right. That was a big aha for me. And so when you're selecting and working with the people you want to work with, take the judgment out of the space, see them as capable, see them as having access to, because the truth is people will find the resources for whatever it is that they truly see value in. I know I'm living proof. Almost every experience I've ever had in my life where there's something I really, really wanted and wanted to experience, more often than not, I quote unquote didn't have the resources in order to experience that thing, but I had the will, I had the desire, I had the intention. and I found a way, aka trusted in the universe, trusted in spirit, trusted in the divine source, I knew that that thing was for me, and there was always a way provided. And that is the difference. If I had judged that I can't get this thing because I don't have the money, or I can't get this thing because I don't have the resources, or I don't have the time, I would not have been able to experience pretty much everything that has lit me up in my life. And so it's really important that we remove the judgment from the space and we start practicing, myself included, I'm talking to myself, practicing seeing the world, seeing every human being, seeing every situation through the eyes of source, through the eyes of, okay, what is our intention? What are we wanting to create? What are we wanting to see? What do we want to experience? Source is already pointing us in that direction. It's already scanning for and bringing in all of the necessary ingredients and all of the necessary people and situations to create that thing we want for us. When we ask, it is given. It is universal law. All we have to do is get out of the way and stay on course with what the vision of our inner being sees and get the judgment out of the space. The judgment, by the way, destroys safety. That'll be a different topic on a different day, but I just want to throw that out there. Judgment destroys safety. It literally gets in the way of any positive exchange that you can put in the space. Whether it's a conscious or a subconscious thing, it destroys the space. It destroys the safety. So remove the judgment, see through the eyes of the inner being, see through the eyes of source. If you can't do that, just trust that source has got this. Trust that your divine source, your divine God, your divine cosmic creator, whatever you need to call it, has this, and you will be in alignment. Blessed be. This is Zen Bliss. Namaste.